In this Elden Ring Beginner Guide, I'll share with you my top tips for getting started, including things I wish I knew sooner. Keep in mind, Elden Ring is a very big and very complex game, so this guide will give you a short crash course on things to be on the lookout for, rather than go into in-depth mechanics and spoilers. Few things affect your playthrough as much as character creation, since your starting class determines what equipment you can use right out of the gate. Let's begin here before getting into other topics that will make your playthrough go a bit more smoothly. The first boss of the game starts strong with a complex character creator. But do not fret, you can change your parents' name and gender soon after starting the game as many times as you want. You will not, however, be able to change your class and keepsake, so these are important early choices. Elden Ring classes are simply starting points, but starting equipment is not found as easily, so you should pick something that best represents your game style. My personal favorites are Astrologer, Samurai, and Confessor. The Astrologer is a mage build with easy range that will give you lots of room to breathe. The Samurai has good armor and a wicked katana. The Confessor can be turned into a paladin for your faith strength combos. If you are lost, make good use of our builds page, as we'll be publishing multiple starter builds right away. For keepsake, you'll want to pick the Golden Seed, Lands Between Rune, or Stonesward Key. The Health Talisman is an easy pickup not long into the game, and the other items aren't really worth it. If you want more details on this, you can check out our character creation guide on our YouTube channel. The game gives you several early tutorials to introduce you to controls and the basics of multiplayer mechanics. If you're new to the Souls games in general, you'll want to pay attention. You can read all these tips in your inventory under Info, so don't be too worried if you miss something. To set the tone of the game, you first need to obtain a few vital items. Hit the Site of Grace at your starting point, Stranded Graveyard, and then the one outside the first step, and run directly north to Church of Ella. The merchant here has 3 main items you'll want: buy the torch, crafting kit, and telescope as soon as you can. Then head over to Gatefront Ruins by following the Grace, and you'll meet Melina and obtain Torrent, your mount. Be sure to get the Whetstone Knife item that allows you to slot Ashes of War in your weapon as well inside the ruins, since this no longer occurs automatically. You can now begin exploring Limgrave at your own pace, but make sure to return to Church of Ella after you've made some progress and rest at the Site of Grace there, as this will unlock a conversation with Brenna that gives you Lone Wolf Ashes and the Spirit Calling Bell, which you will need to use Spirit Ashes in the game. You can now begin to follow our game progress route to get things done with some direction. That wiki page will be vital to your efforts, so make sure to bookmark it. If you're new to Souls, there's a lot to unpack on the depth of the combat, and you can read about it and status effects, etc. on our wiki pages. For this guide, we'll focus on some essential tips to keep you alive. These are gear, tactics, and mount. For gear, you'll want to get equipment that suits your build or playstyle and is easy to pick up. Our build guides have recommended pickup locations for good gear, but you can also sort this out yourself by opening our equipment page and using the comparable tables, then fighting items that are near you. Basic recommendations are to get the brass shield from the guards in Gatefront Ruins, as it has a 100% physical block, and the Demi-Human Queen Staff from Weeping Peninsula's Demi-Human Forest Ruins. If you sword and shield, get the Barricade Shield from the Knights Cavalry in Weeping Peninsula. For any class, Ash of War Glintstone Phalanx is amazingly useful, and you can check the wiki for its location. For tactics, it's best not to approach groups of enemies full on. Always check the corners and ceilings when exploring catacombs and ruins, as you will find enemies waiting in ambush hidden at clever angles. Expect the unexpected, or you'll get ganged up on and killed by a mob. You can pick to play stealthy and backstab stronger enemies, or hit them and run away until they lose aggro and then return to finish them off. You should do whatever feels like matches you best, so think creatively, and if you get stuck, consider coming back later or rethink your gear, Ashes of War, and spells. You should also experiment with the many consumables available to apply damage effects to your weapons, throw bombs at enemies, or boost your own defenses. Your mount is a very important part of combat, and many encounters, particularly dragons, are best done mounted. Magic users should note that even if you're locked on, your spells will fire in the direction you are facing, so you have to be looking towards enemies to hit them. Everyone needs to make good use of Torrent's Sprint to get out of enemy range, but be mindful that this consumes stamina. The most important combat mount tip is, if you're fighting mounted, your weight doesn't matter. This means even if you're a mage, if you're on Torrent, you can equip the heaviest armor in your inventory and move at the same speed. This is indispensable for avoiding damage in many encounters, so make full use of it when fighting Knights Cavalry, dragons, and any mount-friendly boss. Elden Ring is a game that heavily rewards exploration. Don't leave any specific location unchecked. Some general tips for this are: Stonesward Key Imp Gates. These gates require a Stonesward Key. There are many of these around, so be sure to purchase any you see from vendors. Catacombs have Ghost and Grave Glovewort, which are used to upgrade your Spirit Ashes. You'll also find more Spirit Ashes within these sections that usually have traps and puzzles to solve. Catacomb puzzles are solved in one of these ways. A. Gain access to a different floor, either by finding a ladder, jumping on top of fire, and standing traps to rise with them, or dropping under elevators. B. Access a secret area. Some catacombs have illusory walls that you must hit to reveal a hidden path. Caves and tunnels usually have special equipment and ore. You'll find most lifts have midway drop-off points that guide you to some special equipment. Whenever you see a tunnel, make sure you go in and gather as many upgrade materials as are available. Towers and rises have magic and magic equipment. Many will give you memory slots which are indispensable for mages. Towers feature several puzzles including finding wise beasts, turtle spirits that are hidden around the area and sometimes clinging to walls, trees, or even cliffs. Other puzzles require you to do a gesture, so make sure to collect the gestures. Lastly, you may be told that something guides the way. This is a hint that there is an invisible platform. Pay very close attention to nearby cliffs and look for misty signals of a possible way on what could be air. Militia camps can have good equipment and spells, so make sure to clear them out when you find them rather than ride by. The same goes for forts and similar larger structures. Oftentimes there are quests associated with these, or you receive key materials. You can run by any large boss or section that you feel you're not ready for. Find a nearby site of grace and summon some help if you need. Be aware that if you get dismounted while exploring, you're about to be invaded by an NPC. Some of these encounters can be very difficult, so always make sure to unlock every site of grace when you see them. The game doesn't give you any firm guidance on what to do or where to go. You get hints from NPC dialogue and item descriptions, so this is where you need to focus to plan your progression. Even with this, you'll find yourself roaming about wondering if this is where you should be, as the game has areas with noticeable difficulty spikes. As mentioned before, your best bet is to book our game progress route, as it will evolve to include all NPC side quests and such. That said, your immediate aim should be to do Limgrave, Weeping Peninsula, and Stormhill before heading into Stormvale Castle. From here, you should go north to Lernia of the Lakes. If you get stuck, revisit NPCs and trigger their dialogue to find out where they tell you to go, or read the descriptions in your key items inventory. If all else fails, the wiki is always there. This is a massive game with multiple branching paths and many secret locations that can only be accessed by NPC and quest progression. Avoid being overwhelmed by it by approaching the game methodically and not rushing from one zone to the next or skipping dialogues. For your character, remember that upgrades outpace leveling. Putting more points into your stats without upgrading your weapons will yield subpar results. Gather upgrades from both your spirit summons and weapons and improve your chosen armaments often and diligently. You should also focus your stats. Spreading them about does not help, and you'll not be able to respec until after the main boss of the Legacy Dungeon in Lernia of Lakes, which is estimated at level 50+. Upgrade Vigor, Endurance, and your main weapon stat, which should be Strength, Dexterity, Faith, or Intelligence only. Upgrade materials are not hard to come by, and a special smith in Western Lernia of the Lakes sells several. You can also find bell bearings to give you to the Twin Maiden Husks and unlock purchases of all upgrade materials. For your weapons, you can freely change affinity to optimize their scaling to your desired stats and apply skills that are useful in combat. There is no best weapon or best armor, but many pieces have special effects. We have made a list of equipment with special effects that you can find on the wiki, and will help you determine which individual pieces to match to optimize your damage output. Elden Ring has some of the most complex NPC questlines in the Souls series. This is mostly because the game is so large and non-linear that it's very easy to miss a step on their progress, or advance the main quest past the point where they can be found. It is prudent to keep track of their whereabouts, talk to them whenever possible, and revisit old areas after major plot points. If an NPC disappears or dies, you can find their equipment and bell bearing at their corpse, or their stock may directly appear with the Twin Maiden Husks at the Round Table Hold. You can also advance your magic progress by giving scrolls to an NPC in Lernia of the Lakes who doesn't have a death flag. If you anger an NPC or commit some sin, there is an absolution mechanic that can also be found at the same NPC at the Church of Vows in Eastern Lernia of the Lakes. There is a lot more to learn to master Elden Ring, and there are so many tips that I can't possibly fit them all into one video. If you have your own tips to share, make sure to do so in the comments. Or head over to the wiki and help the community by editing and adding information about the game. Also, make sure to check out our Elden Ring review and character creation and builds that we have coming out as well.
Alright, bro. Elden Ring review, no spoilers. 100+ hour gameplay on PC and PS5. You can't even imagine. I don't know what's next. Elden Ring in 2025, the ultimate new player's guide. 30 minutes. Let's do it.
Hi everyone, my name's Diabetor and it's currently Christmas, so you know what that means. A big wave of noobs has entered Elden Ring. I personally cannot wait to bust out my level 15 Invader Smurf build and absolutely stomp countless noobs into the ground. Alas, I have a soft heart, and I can't stand to have such an overwhelming advantage over them. Well, okay, I can, and I in fact do enjoy that, but I'm also nice. So today, I'm going to even the playing field just a little bit by giving you new players a guide on how to get started in Elden Ring. This is a huge and deep game with a lot of mechanics, and it can definitely feel overwhelming at times. But after following this guide, you'll be confident in your knowledge of where to go, what to do, and how to do it. Make sure you check out the timestamps down in the description so you can see what different tips and stuff I'll be telling you. And if you find this video helpful, please leave a like, share the video, and consider subscribing. It really helps me out. And with all that said, let's get into Elden Ring. First, I want to set you up with some universal information that applies to any class you choose and any build you make. These are going to be the basics of the game and the fundamentals of how you should approach it, so above all else, make sure you follow my advice in this section of the guide. Elden Ring's core gameplay loop looks something like this. You explore a huge open world in which you'll find dungeons and other places full of bad guys and loot. You have a set number of healing flasks, which determine how many mistakes you can make before you die. You'll find sites of grace throughout the world and larger dungeons, and these are basically checkpoints where you can respawn if you die. Alternatively, if you're in a dungeon and you've made too many mistakes, and you're not sure you can make it to the next grace without dying, you can head back to the previous grace and rest at it to refresh your character and refill your flasks. This comes at a cost, however, because it'll also make most or all of the enemies respawn. But now that you have an idea of what to expect, hopefully you can do better this time and make it further in before running out of flasks, preferably to the next grace. Along the way, you'll gain rooms from killing enemies and find weapons, spells, armor, and other loot which you can use to upgrade your weapons and improve your build. Do this enough, and once you reach the boss, you'll be able to kill them for lots of runes and strong loot. And once you're done with the dungeon, you can go back to the open world and repeat the process. Now, I want to address the most common questions people have when they start this game. Why the hell is it so hard? How do people have fun dying over and over again? And the answer to those questions are as follows. 1. It's seriously not nearly as hard as you think it is, trust me. And 2, they don't. Dying is absolutely something you're gonna have to get used to in this game, but there are some pretty simple tips which aren't always immediately apparent to new players. I know I definitely had a hard time before I realized some of the stuff, and once you follow them, you're gonna die a lot less and have a way better time with Elden Ring. Number 1, above all else, if there is anything that you take away from this video, let it be this. Level your fucking vigor stat. This is usually the thing which determines whether or not somebody is gonna have a good time with Elden Ring. Vigor determines your maximum health. This is a game where there are lots of enemies which attack you fast and hit hard, so it should go without saying that increasing your max health is a good way to stay alive. In fact, it's the best way to stay alive. Vigor is far and away the most efficient stat to level in terms of what returns you get per point spent in it. Compared to what you get from wearing heavy armor sets, it's not even close. A few points into Vigor can increase your effective health by upwards of 300 to 450%, whereas the heaviest armor sets in the game will increase it by only around 33%. Believe me, I know you want to level your strength so you can do more damage with your big-ass sword, or level your intelligence so you can do more damage with your pew-pew lasers, or level endurance so you can wear super heavy armor, but none of that matters if you don't have the vigor to back it up. If you have a sword that can kill the bad guys in 3 hits, but the bad guys can kill you in 1 hit, then you're never going to kill the bad guys, right? You might think that you can just dodge good and don't get hit, but that's a skill which takes a lot of practice and memorization to learn. And even the best players in the world, like Gino Machino, who is so badass that he regularly beats literally all 207 bosses in the game without getting hit a single time. Even he will level Vigor up when he's not doing a no-hit run, because it's seriously just that important. It doesn't matter what your build is, doesn't matter if you're a mage who stays at range from your enemies, or if you're a dude with a big-ass shield and super heavy armor. You seriously need Vigor in this game. My recommendation is that you level Vigor to 30 before you level up any other stats. Seriously, get 30 Vigor before you put a single point in any other stat. Trust me. After that, you can level up your other stats a bit. I'll talk about that more in the build section of this video. And then you want to get 40 Vigor by the time you reach Renala in Raya Lucaria Academy. She's basically the second major boss. And you want 60 Vigor by the end of the game. Follow this leveling scheme and you will have a great time with Elden Ring, I promise. Number 2. So you might be saying, okay Diabetor, Vigor is cool and all, but how do I kill the bad guys if I don't level up my damage stats? That's a good question, and my answer is that you're wrong about the importance of your damage stats. The second thing which I often see people struggle with, and which makes them bounce off of this game, is that they neglect to upgrade their weapons. Everyone just... You might wonder how they pull that off. The answer is buffs. Buffs are a quick and easy way to significantly increase the effectiveness of your build, and there are a bunch of buffs you can get literally within 10 minutes of starting the game, and which work for any build. Now, if you want to one-shot bosses, then yeah, you're going to need to put a lot of effort into buffing, and you're going to have to stack like 20 different buffs. But if you want to just have a really solid and practical build, then you only need like 3 or 4 buffs, and you'll be good to go for pretty much the entire game. Some of these buffs are literally free, and it breaks my heart whenever I see someone walk into a boss fight without even using the most basic ones, so make sure you use buffs. On screen right now you'll see a couple things. One is a list of
These are not all stackable, they are just examples.
Buffs. I'll put some notes about which buffs do what, but you can Google these and go grab them really easily to add them to your arsenal. The second is a card which will link to my quick start guide, which shows you where you can go to grab a few of these buffs, as well as a ton of other useful and important stuff. It'll take you about 20 to 30 minutes to follow it, and it'll get you set up with a bunch of really important stuff, as well as some more tips about how to succeed.
I had the Blood Flame Blame, Blood Fang, I think the sword, right? And then Blood Flame's Blade, which did bleed damage. It was really powerful. I got it to like 9, I want to say, because I don't know where to get the rest of those smithing stones. But that was all I would use. I don't know shit else. I have no other weapons besides like the one sword, the skinny joint that you can dual hand. I forgot the name of that shit. The really skinny basic sword, and I never used that too. So there's still so much I don't know about the fucking
Number
game.
4, equip load. Make sure you are not in heavy equip load. You can see your current equip load on the bottom right of your equipment screen. I'll write about the specifics of equip load in the description, but basically if you have too much of the game, there's a ghost you can talk to, and he tells you to go into the Cave of Knowledge below him. This is the tutorial, where the game teaches you the basic refresher.
Here we go.
Alright, so this section is going to cover more than just where to go, but I gave it that title for that sweet search engine optimization. Anyway, Elden Ring is a mostly non-linear open-world game, where your goal is to explore, find bosses, and kill them. Along the way, you'll find weapons, armor, talismans which give unique effects, ashes of war which add powerful skills to your weapons, all different sorts of magic spells, and more. If you make sure to be curious and explore, and keep your eyes open, you'll have no trouble figuring out where to go and getting the gear you need to beat this game. With all that said, here are some exploration tips that'll help you out. The gate front. This is going to be a small section, but basically, when you start the game, you won't have your horse or the ability to level up. You need to follow the road directly north from where you started, and you'll find the gate front ruins. On the left side of the ruins, you'll see a site of grace. Go activate that and sit down at it, and Melina will appear and give you Torrent and the ability to level up. I want to make sure I mention this, because the map itself will be mostly featureless. However, you'll be able to see them their own little section. The developers put these roads in the game for a reason. They usually lead to cool or important places. Again, standing out from them, which leads to something important. You can see these pointers on your map as well. These usually lead to a major dungeon or a place with a major quest. Following these pointers is completely optional, and you do not have to follow them. In fact, it's usually a good idea not to follow them at first, which I'll explain more in a minute. These are just suggestions about where you should go next and reminders about where something important might be, like the Graces in Limgrave, which lead you to Stormvale Castle, where you'll find the first. Come back later. Like I just mentioned, it's often a good idea not to follow the guidance of Grace at first. It'll be easiest to explain this if I just show you what I mean. So at the start of the game, there are Graces which point you to Stormvale. This section is going to talk about leveling up in Elden Ring, strategies for what to level up and why you should level it up, and how not to level up. Let's just get right into it. What stats should you level up? What do your different stats do, and when are they important? Vigor. This increases your max health, fire defense, and immunity. So I already went on a rant about how it is extremely important that you level Vigor, preferably to 40 as soon as possible, for the max HP increases it gives you. And I'm not going to go over all that again here. As for the fire defense, that just slightly reduces the fire damage you take. It's generally not super important to worry about your defense stats. Keep in mind that this is different from damage negation, which is important. Immunity determines your resistance to poison and scarlet rot, and having more is better, so keep in mind that leveling Vigor will make you more resistant to those effects. Mind. This increases your max FP and focus. FP, also known as focus points or mana, is your blue bar. You use this to cast spells, use skills, and also for certain consumables. This is mostly something for mages to increase, so if you're a melee focused build, you probably don't need more than about 15 mind tops. However, there are also spirit ashes, see my video about them to learn more, and these usually require FP to summon, so if you intend to use the more expensive ones, then having more mind or mind raising equipment can come in handy. Your focus is a stat which determines your resistance to the sleep and madness status effects. These are pretty rare in PvE and mostly only important in PvP, so for the sake of this guide, we're not going to worry too much about that. Endurance. This increases your max stamina and equip load as well as your robustness. Stamina is your green bar and determines how many actions you can do in combat in a row. Having more stamina, I'm grouping these all together because they all do basically the same thing. These are your damage stats. They determine which increase the weapon's damage. For example, here I have a memorize spell menu. If you don't meet the stat requirements for a weapon, then you can still use it, but it's going to do basically no damage and its Ash of War won't work properly. Furthermore, if you have a weapon which scales with one of these stats, then leveling that stat will increase the weapon's damage. For example, here I have a club which has a C in strength scaling and has no scaling in any other stats. If I level up my strength, then that will make the club do more damage. If I level up dexterity, then that will have no effect on the club because the club doesn't have dex scaling. Similarly, here's a sword with strength, dexterity, and intelligence scaling. Leveling up strength or dex will increase its physical damage, and leveling up intelligence. Can you tell I wanted that timestamp to factor into my search engine optimization? Anyway, I'm going to tell you straight up, and just bear with me here. Farming runes is a complete waste of time in Elden Ring. Stats are not what makes your character powerful. On screen, you'll see an image macro I made.
Okay. Tyrion, Queen of the Full Moon, Renala. She dropped 40,000 runes. What? So 80,000? No, 30 co-op, and you're the host. 10 co-op, and you joined. By yourself, 40. She's the second major boss. Only has 4k HP. Recommended to fight her 40 vigor, 9 plus weapons. Overall 40. How is she only the second major boss? It took me, I don't know, 6 months to maybe find this girl and fight her. This dude farmed the dragon for runes. We'll assume the dragon drops 70k runes per kill, and each kill takes 2 minutes. To reach level 232 from level 10 requires 30 million runes, right? 30 million by 70k is 428 dragon kills. 428 dragon kills by 2 minutes is 856 minutes. 14 hours of killing that big nasty ass white dragon. Despite all that farming, this dude still can't beat the second boss. She was light to kill. You just gotta kill the bitch that's singing, right? She'll come down, boom, 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 whatever. This dude still can't beat the second boss. Levels mean nothing. Making the number bigger won't make the game easier. Play the game and learn how to fight the bosses. All you need is 40 to 60 vigor, an upgraded weapon, and the patience to learn. There's no instant win button.
For the official Elden Ring Discord server. In fact, I'm an expert there. Stop by and say hi. And you can pause and read that. But basically, it's proof that being a really high level does spending...
Why is this so long, though? This dude farmed the dragon for runes. Well, okay. What? We already seen this. Most people will beat the game at level 125 to 150. These are all the places I need to go.
Major part...
Whoa, this is some shit I need to save, though. Limgrave, I know about Limgrave. Mining of the Lakes, Caelid. So these are all the places to go, and that's everything to Google. So do I need to do all of this, bro? 30 vigor for Limgrave. Ray Lucaria, 40. Lindell, 40. Volcano Manor, 40. So everything 40, pretty much. 40 and up. 9 to 12 for Learning of the Lakes? You're lying. 15 to 18 for Lindell. 15 to 18 for Mount Gilmere. And Caelid, 12 to 15. Sulphur River, 6 to 9. That's light. Okay. Enzo River. Only been there once. You gotta fall down the one shit for something, right? You gotta get in the stone coffin, fall down the fucking river. That's big. I forgot what that's about, though. Diabetor. Diabetors. Is he trying to say diabetes? Diabetor. Diabetor's checklist for struggling players. Make sure you are not in heavy equip load. Know that. You should focus on leveling your vigor stat. Make sure you upgrade your weapons. And don't worry about your armor. Whoa. Wear whatever you think looks cool as long as you're medium. Or light. I've always been heavy load.
Can't stop you from farming runes if you want to,
So
but it is genuinely a major
dripped.
part of why so many people struggle with this game. Because they assume that making the numbers bigger will make the game easier. And you should be aware that this just isn't true. What you do with your time is up to you, but my final words on this subject, in this video at least, will be that even From Software told people that levels aren't everything in this game.
It's their first two.
So, when you level up, what stats should you increase and when? I mentioned earlier that I strongly recommend you get 30 vigor as soon as possible. I don't care what your class is or what build you're aiming for. When you make a new character, your first goal should be to get level 30 vigor as soon as possible. And you'll also want to upgrade your weapons as high as possible too. You can have the coolest, flashiest build in the world, but if you don't have vigor, then you're going to keep dying over and over again. So get that shit to 30 as soon as possible. In the process of exploring and killing side bosses for runes to get that 30 vigor, you'll probably come across some weapons and spells and stuff that you want to use. So my advice is that once you reach 30 vigor...
How to make a build from scratch as a new player. Get 30 vigor. While exploring the process of getting 30 vigor, find weapon spells. Use your basic starting gear during the game. Make sure to upgrade it with smithing stones. Basic starting gear? Oh, during that time. Okay. So that you do good damage. Upon getting 30 vigor, see what cool stuff you found or what you've seen or heard about from other people and decide what looks cool to you. You will base this build around that. Get the minimum stats required to yield the weapons. Use smithing stones to upgrade them. Level up your chosen weapon's primary damage stat, i.e. the one that gets you the highest scaling. Okay, so like... Yeah, I don't know how to fucking... Do not spread your levels out too much. You need to level Vigor and your main damage stat, and a bit of mind and endurance is needed. Right. Assumed. I want my endurance to be up though. I want to be fucking shit. Next. Vigor leveling milestones. 40 Vigor by the time you fight Renala and Ray Lucernia. 60 Vigor ASAP after reaching the mountaintops. For real? Bro. How to get good, huh?
Yeah. For the final section of this guide, I'm going to tell you about how to succeed in Elden Ring's combat system. Before we get into that, though, I just want to tell you real quick that your starting class is basically meaningless in this game. Your starting class just determines your starting equipment and your starting stats. All of the different equipment that each class starts with can be found throughout the world regardless of which class you pick. Like, people often suggest starting as Samurai because of his Uchi Katana, and that is a good choice. But you can literally go get that sword 5 minutes into the game on any other character. So unless you want to dual wield Uchi Katanas, the Samurai isn't like unique because he has that sword. The same thing goes for all the weapons, spells, and armor that the different classes start with. They can all be obtained by any class just by finding them in the world, and most of them are found pretty early on. As for your starting stats, any class can level any stats. Like, for example, the Astrologer is supposed to be like the pure sorcery class who casts magic spells, and the Hero is supposed to be like a heavy weapon wielding strength barbarian kind of guy, right? But there's literally nothing stopping me from making an Astrologer and leveling up strength so that I can use a big ass club to bonk shit. And there's nothing stopping me from leveling up intelligence on a Hero and getting a staff to cast spells with. Any class can do anything. Your starting class mainly just affects whether or not you can do those things at the very start of the game. Now, starting class can also be important if you want to make an optimized build at a specific level for multiplayer, but that's really not something you should worry about as a brand new player, so I'm not going to talk about that in this video. With that out of the way, I'm just going to go over the basics of Elden Ring's combat system and how you should approach it. Elden Ring's combat can be as basic or as complicated as you want it to be. If you want it to just be, dodge an attack and then hit the bad guy and repeat, then go for it. If you want to do all of these cool flashy moves and combine spells and all different sorts of buffs and stuff, then you can go for it. You have a ton of options for how you approach encounters with enemies and boss fights. The main concepts that you need to understand no matter what are when you should dodge and when you should attack. Elden Ring isn't really a slow-paced game per se, but the developers want you to be really deliberate with your actions. You get punished a lot for spamming attacks without thinking, or for panic rolling when you see an enemy winding up an attack. If you want to succeed, then you need to learn the importance of being deliberate with your actions. Enemies and bosses generally won't allow you to just walk up to them and attack them. Usually they'll attack right before you do, or they'll input read your attack and dodge. This sounds annoying, and it kind of is, but it's really there to prevent the game from being boring as shit, because think about it. If you could just walk up to every single enemy and combo them to death without any resistance, that would get real old real fast, right? So what the developers want you to do is bait out an attack from an enemy, dodge it, and then use their recovery animation to get attacks in. I'll expand upon that in a second, but being able to dodge or block enemy attacks is a super important skill that you should practice. Struggle with landing hits on, because they attack you as soon as you go to attack them, or they input read your attack and dodge it. Like I said, you want to be deliberate with your actions. If you just run up to the enemy and try wildly swinging at them, then they're gonna attack you while you can't cancel your attack animation, and you're gonna get hit. The trick is that you're not supposed to just walk up to the enemy and attack them from a neutral position. You're supposed to bait out enemy attacks, dodge them, and then while the enemy is recovering from their attack animation, that punish window is when you should attack. It's kind of like a turn-based game in a way, where you let them have their turn and then you retaliate afterwards. Punish windows are super important in this game, and you should do your best to identify and practice taking advantage of them. It's often best to approach combat in a dodge, hit, dodge kind of fashion, where you dodge an enemy's attack, hit them, and then back off and get ready to dodge and repeat the process. Now, with that said, you don't have to use punish windows to attack. For one, punish windows are also often healing windows as well. Let's look at this Godskin Apostle, for example. I'm low on health, and I gotta heal, but he has this super annoying habit of input reading my heals and throwing fireballs at me while I'm drinking a flask, thus wasting the flask or potentially killing me. If I want to heal during this fight, then I gotta go balls to the wall, bait out an attack from him, despite being at low health myself, and then during that punish window where he cannot attack me, that is when I can safely heal. Some people find this kind of thing annoying, but I think it's great. It would be boring as hell if in every boss fight, whenever you needed to heal, you just ran away from the boss and drank a flask in the corner and then just went back in, right? The devs want to create these exciting, ass-clenching moments where you dodge an attack by the skin of your teeth when that attack could kill you, and then you heal and you feel like a badass for dodging it and doing this high-octane, high-risk maneuver. So keep that in mind and think about it like that, because it will greatly improve your time with this game. It sure did for me. And so back to talking about punish windows, number 2 is that I should also mention dodging is not necessary in this game. It's highly recommended. You get invulnerability frames during dodges, and dodging will typically use less stamina than blocking an attack, and it also just looks cool as fuck. But you don't have to if you don't want to, or if you can't for whatever reason. Not only do you have access to shields, which you can use to block attacks, it's probably better to block an attack and take some chip damage than it is to take a full-on hit because you failed to dodge it, right? But you've also got access to other things like hyper armor. Some of your attacks, usually two-handed attacks with big weapons or casting certain spells, will give you hyper armor, which prevents you from getting stunned out of your attack animation. This is also known as poise. This allows you to trade hits with an enemy, which can be really useful and fun depending on your build. For example, if you're using a huge, slow weapon like a colossal weapon, then your attacks are going to be really slow, and it'll typically be harder to play without getting hit. But if you can just take advantage of that hyper armor and just tank hits while dealing tons of damage in return. You've also got Ashes of War, which provide hyper armor, such as Lion's Claw, which lets you tank your way through basically anything, or even better, you've got Endure, which can go on any weapon and lets you tank your way through literally anything, because it gives you infinite hyper armor, also known as super armor, and it gives you 45% damage resistance for 3 seconds. Endure is a super useful tool to have on any build, because if you're fighting a boss and you're struggling to dodge its attacks, you can just use Endure as a sort of safety net to tank them instead. Yeah, you'll take damage, but having that 45% damage negation will make it a lot less painful than just failing to dodge the attack entirely. Combine that with high vigor and other damage negation buffs, and you can even become super tanky super easily. So don't feel like you have to dodge everything, because you don't. I'm going to end this guide here, because I've somehow managed to write 11 pages worth of stuff without even realizing.
Okay. Important takeaways. Level your vigor. Upgrade your weapons as often as possible. Use buffs while exploring for boss fights. While exploring? Why would I use it? Practice dodging and make sure you're not in a heavy load. Don't get frustrated. Each death is learning experience. And if a boss in the area is too hard, go explore somewhere else. That's facts. Alright. What am I trying to say? Oh, alright, yeah. I'll upload this. Tomorrow you're going to see me make my build and get started. I'm telling you right now, I will be Elden Lord. I will be Elden Lord. Soon. Probably gonna play a little tonight, but I'm gonna get this uploaded first. Catch y'all boys on the flip side.